My childhood best friend Marie and I were around 11 or 12 years old at the time. Marie's family had their own campsite in a provincial park about 2 hours from our hometown and would spend the entire summer out there each year living in their camper. This particular summer, I was able to go and stay with them for a week, and we were excited to spend our time adventuring around the forest. On the last night that I was there, we decided we wanted to hurry down to the ice cream shop by the lake before it closed. It was early evening at this point, still pretty bright out, but beginning to lose light. The path we took was down a short slope right next to the main road, with maybe 10 feet of thick brush and trees between. On the other side was the forest, with more tall, thick brush. So we were walking along and not seeing a single other person on the path, in front or behind us. We then suddenly hear rustling and snapping of branches, similar to the sounds of maybe a deer moving through the woods. But then the sound of running footsteps follows. Marie glances back and suddenly grabs my arm, urging me under her breath not to look back. At the same time, the running stops. I don't know why I didn't ignore her and get a look myself. I guess I could sense the very real fear in her voice and chose to listen, getting that feeling like when you are running up the stairs after turning the basement light off. We pick up the speed as much as we can without breaking into a sprint, knowing the ice cream shop is only about a minute walk away at this point. The path soon breaks and we're in the parking lot. Suddenly Marie steers me hard to the left, heading towards the lake and the boat rental instead of continuing straight to the ice cream shop. And I go along with it silently, understanding ice cream is no longer an interest right now. Marie is clearly panicking at this point. We're both looking around, but it seems whatever scared her is nowhere in sight at this point. Marie walks up to the boat rental and gets us a kayak, and we climb in and begin to paddle out into the middle of the lake. As we paddle, she tells me that there was a man behind us, and that the man had stopped running at us abruptly upon making eye contact with her. He was wearing a long black coat, with the hood up, despite it being the middle of July. He had a terrible smirk on his face, and she swore that as he stopped running, she saw him put something shiny away into his coat. He appeared to have just emerged out of the bushes after we walked past, given the sounds we heard right before he came running onto the path. We reached the centre of the lake and stopped paddling. I pulled out my Nokia brick phone that my parents had, thank God, given me just in case. I hand it to Marie and tell her to call her parents to come and pick us up. As the phone rings, I see her looking past me to the shore and go pale, lifting a hand to point to what she sees. I turn, and there was the man, stalking his way around the path that circled the edge of the lake, staring at us. We sat in the middle of the lake and watched him do 2 full laps, never looking away from us, before finally disappearing. It took a few tries to get a hold of her family. We were freaking out so badly the whole time. As the sun got lower and lower, we did manage to have someone come with the truck, but by the time we reached the shore, it was pretty dark outside. I don't know what we would have done if we hadn't have been able to call a ride. Looking back, I don't know why we didn't just go up to the ice cream shop, inform an adult there, and ask her parents to come and get us. But it worked out. We got back safe, and we thankfully never saw the man again. So a few months ago I was out hiking with my friend. We live in the mountains and we're about 6 miles into an 8-mile loop we have done frequently, when we decided to take some pictures and eat a snack at the summit. This area of the trail had a park, benches and tables, and a parking lot. We were sitting and talking, and I noticed a man just walking around the parking lot alone. He was walking aimlessly and staring at his feet. What confused me was that he was in jeans and a button-down shirt, not exactly hiking attire. We decided to set off on the last 2-mile leg of the loop. This part goes downhill to the headquarters of the park and is cut out of the mountain. The end of the leg is the parking lot where our car is. You don't have a lot of visibility from the trail and have to walk single file. I was walking in front and talking to my friend. I turned to look at her, and I see the same man right behind her, following at a rudely close distance. I immediately got a gut-wrenching feeling. I noticed that he didn't have any hiking gear. I was not even wearing boots.
Something about his eyes really spooked me. So after a bit more walking, he still continued to fall very close. I say to my friend that I have to tie my shoe as a reason to step off the trail and let him pass us, in case he is only following closely because he wants to go faster than we are. She immediately catches on to what I'm doing, and we pull over. He looks startled, and she says hello politely. He just stares. This is when I notice that he is carrying a stick. As I'm fiddling with my shoe, she stands between us, and he passes us. We wait to give him some distance ahead of us, but he immediately slows down. We wait a bit longer, and he gets to the furthest part of the trail that has sight lines to us, and he turns around looking up at us. We decided that something feels too wrong about this guy, and we don't want to have to pass him again. So we turn around and walk back up the trail towards the park, with the tables and parking. A few minutes of walking up the trail, I look back and see him walking up the trail too. He's following us. I tell my friend to walk faster. We book it up the trail and get to the parking lot we were at before. We start to strategize and wait, deciding that we will wait and see if he comes back up the trail to the lot. There are more people around here, so we felt a lot safer waiting it out. About 20 minutes go by and nothing. We are talking about how this could mean that he kept going on the trail and is long gone, or is waiting on the trail where it is more deserted. We saw a couple coming from the trail where we were, presumably taking the loop in an opposite direction that we were. We approached them and asked if they saw anyone on the trail between this lot and the next. They tell us they saw a young man sitting on a rock about halfway down. They describe the man who was following us. We explain our interaction with him to the wife and get into a conversation back and forth about whether or not he was a threat. The husband finally interjects and says, "We need to call a ranger. He wasn't just sitting there. He had a knife and was carving that stick." Needless to say, we called a ranger. The nice couple walked the last leg with us to make sure that we got to our car safely, and then even gave us their number in case we needed anything. The rangers then walked the trail, but there was no sight of him. I wish I knew where he went and what happened to him, but I am glad to know that my instincts are legitimate. So creepy knife-carrying man in the woods, let's not meet again.
It was a few years back. I was home alone with my daughter, who was basically a newborn. She was asleep in the bassinet beside my bed. I was in my old house, alone as my ex-husband was working nights. My bedroom was on the second floor. It was around midnight, then I woke up to give my daughter a bottle as she settled back to sleep. I laid in bed scrolling on my phone, trying to get tired again. I'm cautious about believing things that people post on Facebook without sources, but a few people had made the same post, and then I came across an article stating that there was a murderer on the run. He had killed a man in the next town over from me and was running from the police. It said they were advising people to stay inside, lock their doors, and some even received phone calls. Stuff like this was a rare happening where I lived, so of course I was freaked out. I texted my ex-husband at work, who had a hard time believing this, but told me to keep my police scanner on. I fell asleep. I'm not sure how long I was asleep for, but I suddenly woke up because the officers on the scanner were screaming, "Shots fired!" And then I had a hard time distinguishing what I was hearing on my phone and what was going on outside. Rapid gunfire started and sounded like it was right in the street outside my window. It took me a moment to register the noise of shots to my virgin ears. Then it was like time suddenly slowed down. As I rolled off my bed and grabbed my daughter, I remember running into the hallway in what seemed like slow motion, away from all the windows, screaming, "What the fuck is happening?" in my head. I shakily dialed my ex-husband at work, and he still wasn't really believing what was going on, so I yelled and called my mum. I just wanted to talk to someone so I didn't feel alone and scared. I kept telling her that there was shooting and I was crying, so maybe she didn't understand me in a half-woken state of mind. I don't even remember what happened after she realized what I was saying, because suddenly I was hanging up and putting the phone on the floor. I stayed in the hallway for I don't know how long, clutching my sleeping baby, who somehow slept through all of this chaos. Sometime later my phone was ringing and it was my mum. I could barely focus enough to listen, but I thought she had told me that she was coming over, so I told her to stay home where it was safe. She was yelling at me, though she was already on my road, but the police had blocked it off. She told them that I was her daughter, and they let her come. They had shot the suspect. He was dead. When my mum came up to the front porch, we saw wet, muddy footprints coming up the steps and smeared on the door, like he had been kicking it. I'm wondering if maybe that was what woke me up at first. By the time my mum got to the house and came inside, it was 5 a.m. It was winter, so it was pitch black dark outside. We sat quietly in the bright kitchen, tiredly sipping coffee and passing my daughter back and forth. My ex-husband arrived home shortly after and believed everything once he saw all of the cops and the road blocked off. Long story short, this man had killed someone in the next town over from me, 3 to 5 miles away, ran to my town, through my back garden, to the road through the trees, and killed another person in the house behind me. That's when the cops showed up and he began to shoot at them, so they shot at him. This was all of the gunfire that I heard. He lay dead in the measly patch of woods in the back of my house. I had goosebumps thinking about all of this murder taking place around me as I lay in bed. When my mum left and my ex-husband put our daughter back to bed, I stepped outside the back porch to smoke a cigarette. I stood there smoking and watching all of the lights at the stark contrast against the grey cold morning.